not a huge effect guy.
Right.
You know, I don't use a ton of effects because
you don't want it to be gimmicky.
Right, exactly. Right. And sometimes I find that, you know,
could be date the sound too. It could be like the flavor of the year.
Yeah, flavor of the year. And sometimes when you start adding way too much, then you have so many controls on every. I don't like a lot of knobs, and I'm more of like a purist, but that's just me. But effects are great. But I think there's a fine line between, especially when you're recording, you know, sometimes you hear recordings and they're adding so much reverb and so much of this and so much chorus, and after a while it like just washes out all the frequent, and it's just very muddy. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your experiences on where to draw the line, how to use effects, you know, to enhance the sound but not overpower or overtake it.
Right. Well, I don't think you should use effects to fatten the sound. Like a lot of people, if they're not getting a big enough sound, the first thing they reach for is a reverb. And to make that sound big, it's sort of very phony to me. The sound should stand on its own without the effects. Though some things call for effects because you want it to sound like a chorusy thing or a flanging thing, and that's going to be the character that you're looking for. So I'd say, you know, use them, you know, prudently. So, you know, if it's enhancing the sound and not detracting from the performance, I think it's fine. And a lot of times I like to record right with the effects, then add them in later. Because
that's a very interesting point, and a lot of people, I'm sure, would disagree with you on that because
they're afraid to commit.
Because once you record with all that effects on instead of recording dry, there's no going back. A lot of people like recording everything dry and adding the effects later. But
you could do that with digital too. You could stay on the safe side and split the signal and record one dry and one with.
But you like to get the sound recorded as it is.
I think because a couple reasons. I think that, let's say you're using it on a guitar. I think the guitar player, when he's hearing the effects, is going to play to the effect. So
that's a good point.
I think that's going to enhance his performance instead of detract.
Have you run into problems where you've done that and put the effects on, and then later on down the mix you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have done that because now that I can't go back and change it?
I'd hate to admit that, but maybe I did.
Maybe once or twice, but
yeah. But I usually go for the sound. You know, I usually compress right to the recording device and EQ and everything because I've been doing it a while. I wouldn't really suggest that for the novice. It's better to probably add that later. But if you know the sound you're going for, I think it hypes the band up. And I'm not one that believes in fixing it in the mix. So I like to have the sound from day one. I think it really gives a lot of inspiration and excitement to the band when they play to it and it sounds like it's a record already.
And how about for the people that are just kind of starting? What's the, like, some common things? Like, I know it's nice sometimes just a little splash of reverb on the vocals just to wet things up a little.
The vocal is one thing that I always record dry. I never.
You always record the vocal dry?
Well, with no reverb. I can't say, because a lot of times I do an effect on the vocal, but I may use two different mics on the vocal. So one mic might be going through a distortion, or I'm overdriving a mic pre. But I always have one that's pristine, the vocal track. Because reverb sometimes is a hard thing to judge how much you're going to need when you get the other tracks in. So if you're a novice and you're not that experienced, I would suggest not putting reverb on it at first. Unless it's a guitar, and you know, sometimes people use this built-in spring reverb in the guitar amp, and that's part of the sound. So I like that, or they're using a delay. So that's always fine. I think, you know, if you're recording it and you have your sound set up in a basic mix, you can sort of tell if everything's fitting in and sounding right. So you can go for it.